Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Well, the Russians finally defined what this sanitary zone is. They spoke about it, but they didn't give it a name. Now, Putin came out and he gave us the name of the sanitary zone. You know what sanitary zone sounds to me? I think it sounds to you like something that's clean. You sanitize it, you clean it. So the Russians want to create in Ukraine a zone between their border and how far they can go in, where they would not know there are not going to be any Ukrainian missile launchers that could possibly hit Russia. That is depends on the area, the range of the rockets, the missiles the Ukrainians will be provided with. So if the Ukrainians will be provided with, let's say, batteries that could hit 200 kilometers, let's say 130 miles, then the Russians will push, that's what they say, if they can, or they will create nothing in between Russian border and 200 kilometers, let's say 130 miles from it. They say in this, there will be no Ukrainian batteries that could shoot in Russia. That means we're gonna them up. This is the plan. So now you know what sanitary means. So if the Ukrainians have any military batteries here, missile launchers here, the Russians will destroy them if they can. That's the plan. The problem is the distance. How wide will this sanitary zone will be? If the Ukrainians, let's say, have 500 kilometers, there's going to be 500 kilometers. Well, that would get them to Poland, if you know what I mean. That means they will get from here to Poland all clear, if they can. And that's exactly what they're saying. So this is a sanitary zone. From now on, when you hear about the sanitary zone, you know exactly what it is. You cannot hit us. So they try to push the Ukrainians' ability to hit Russian territory by destroying everything here, like flattening it out. So let's look at this article coming from Sputnik. What is a sanitary zone and how could it be created in Ukraine? How could it be? So they're looking at it. Moscow could respond to Ukraine's incursions, sabotage attack and shelling of the Russian border region by creating a sanitary zone, Putin said at a meeting with military journalists. What could the creation of a sanitary zone mean for Ukraine? And I'm quoting, the sanitary zone is a demilitarization zone. Igor Korochenko, military analyst, editor-in-chief of National Defense magazine, told Sputnik, and I'm quoting, formally, it will remain the territory of Ukraine, but either Russian armed forces will be present there or strikes will be carried out so that no military infrastructure of Ukraine is present there. The main goal and the tasks related to the sanitary zone are to prevent the shelling of Russian cities, towns, and the death of the Russian civilian population. Here is what was meant, end quote. On June 13th, yesterday, President Putin met with war correspondents covering the Russian special military operation to demilitarize and denazify Ukraine. The president noted that if the Kiev regime proceeds with attacks against Russian citizens, Moscow would consider forming a sanitary zone, end quote, in Ukraine for the sake of security. And I'm quoting Putin. The possibility of shelling our territory from Ukraine remains in place, end quote, he said. And I'm quoting again. Here are several solutions. First, bolstering the effectiveness of counter-battery struggle, but this does not mean that there won't be missile strikes against our territory. But if this continues, then we will apparently have to consider the issue. Listen to this. And I'm saying this very carefully. Of creating a sanitary zone on Ukraine's territory at such a distance from where it could be impossible to reach our territory. End quote. The Russian president emphasized that he did not mean that this work will start tomorrow, adding that the Kremlin has to see how the situation develops. And let me show you here Dmitry Medvedev, which is very feisty. And let me see what this guy says. So the line of the sanitary zone in Ukraine should run along the borders of Lvov. I'm going to show you on the map where Lvov is. Given the decisions of the West to supply Kiev with long-range missiles, according to the deputy chairman of Russia's Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev. And I'm quoting, such a line should run along the borders of Lvov or Lviv, Polish Lemberg, in order to play a real defensive role, Medvedev stated on his Telegram account. So, as I told you, the longer the range of the missiles provided to Ukraine, the bigger the buffer zone, the sanitary zone. So let me go to a map and show you this little beautiful map here. 3, 2, 1, and go. So here it is, Ukraine. Lvov is right here. You see Lvov? So this is Ukraine. This is where they're fighting right here. And supposedly the Russians will be able to push, according to them, if necessary, push the Ukrainians or deplete them of weapons that could hit Russia right here. This is Lvov right here, Lviv, whatever you want to call it. It's right here. So this is going to be free Ukraine, I'm guessing, or militarized Ukraine right here. And from Lvov to here will be demilitarized, denazified Ukraine. Now, obviously, it's a big task, and unless they, how do you call it, conduct a general mobilization and they start blowing them up with other kind of weapons, you know, so they don't have to pick, one boom, then without that, I don't think the Russians will be able to do that. I'm 100% certain that they cannot do that unless these guys crack, these guys being the West, cracks at the contact line, the counteroffensive, let's say, falters, and then the Russians move over, which I don't think that would happen. I don't think so. Sorry. They need to mobilize more people, and they have to plan much differently than they are right now in order to achieve this sanitary zone. Unless they're going to use bigger weapons, you know, you don't have to, let's say you have a little cluster of air defense systems here, until you go on each one with an Iskander or with a Kinzhal or whatever. You send one and that's going to destroy the whole thing over there. I think that's what they will. I don't think they're going to do that, because that means they're going to go nuclear. I don't think they're going to use nuclear weapons on this for that reason. But they would take 1 day. In 1 day, they can achieve that with, I would say, very much criminal intent. And I don't think the Russians will do that. But that's a solution for them. If otherwise, general mobilization or big mobilization, I'm talking about millions of people, if they have this, and they can, I mean, they can have 30 million people being mobilized. And they spoke about that. Putin spoke in this meeting with the war correspondents that they could take over Kiev and they could take over Ukraine only if they have a general mobilization, like war. As I said, if they really, that's why they don't call this a war and they call it an operation, because they don't mobilize people for the war. If they do that, I think they could stop in the Atlantic Ocean, but unless, you know, it's really going to be a big thing. So that's why they call it a military special operation, because they don't put over their, as I said, I think the Russians are fighting with between 5 and 7% of their potential. That means if they want, they can get all that, and then things change. But they don't want to destabilize their country too much. They do try little by little, you know, take care of these guys and push them and make them decide, okay, let's talk. That's how I see it. So think about this sanitary zone. Thank you very much for being with me again today. And think about it being on Lvov line. That's Poland. All right. Stay strong. Stay smart. Look for the truth and be just, my friends.